Hello everyone, this is Steve, and tomorrow's read is going to be from First John 3, and I wanted to read First John 1 and also 2. So I'm going to probably end up with a few videos today, but as a lead-in to First John, I wanted to share a story with you, actually more of a biography of a friend of mine. And this particular friend of mine, I met way back when we were 14 years old. We started martial arts together. We didn't start it together, we met there. And we became very good friends. He was a groomsman in my wedding. And years later, we had our first kickboxing match on the same card. And not against each other, but you get the idea. But when I got out of it and pursued, all the craziness that I pursued, he stayed in it and stayed in fighting, and became kickboxing world champion of the world. He was light heavyweight champion of the world. And after that, actually not after, while he was champion, he started doing drugs. And that was about 12, 13 years ago, something like that. Lose track of time, it's probably longer than that. But he's still in the meth. I remember when he was in his first, went into treatment several years ago. First time he was ever in treatment in Waverly, Minnesota. And I went to visit him. We were sitting out in the courtyard, and I said, "Why are you here now?" And at that time he was doing meth for about 5 years, I think. I said, "Why are you here now? And why, instead of a year ago or 2 years ago?" And he said, "Because my mom cut me off. His mom told him, 'Don't come back here anymore. You're not getting anything from me anymore. You're done.'" So that's why I ended up there, but it didn't stop him, only temporarily. He ended up in prison for a while. Now, right about that time, I started getting introduced to Jesus. Although in hindsight, I wasn't saved yet, although I knew the story and I would have called myself a Christian. But in hindsight, I also recognized that the Father was drawing me to His Son. There's no doubt that the Lord was calling me in. Praise God. So I would have conversations with him, and at that time, I would try to present the gospel, but I really didn't know it to the full extent. So it was kind of like, "Hey, Coleman, I'm glad you found something that works for you." That's kind of the attitude. And he's very smart, surprisingly. A lot of people don't know that about him. Very intelligent, very into philosophy. One of our old instructors was very much into Eastern philosophy, and that kind of molded him. He never knew his dad, and this particular person ended up kind of being his father figure. And this particular person's atheistic viewpoints molded him, and so did some of the other things. But so he is very skeptical and the whole thing. But a couple of years ago, I believe it was about 2 years ago, he got out of prison. My friend got out of prison. And as history would dictate, it only was a short period of time where he would end up in the drug culture and he would disappear for a long time. So I determined that I was not going to waste any time. Now that I actually was saved, I was going to be able to present the gospel to him, the whole truth, for the first time. out of all the conversations we had, I was finally going to be able to give him the real truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, you know. So we went to, I said, hey, I want to get together with you, take you to lunch. And when he'd come out of jail or prison or treatment or get straight for a while, sober for a while, that wasn't a problem. You know, he would get together and we were still very close and I love him a lot, you know. But once he disappeared, once he was in that culture, there's almost no chance to connect. So anyway, I called him right away when he got out of prison. We got together and shared the whole gospel with him. And he, at that time, was, he's very much, and he'll tell you this, he's very much a manipulator. He's very, I mean, you can't be immersed in that drug culture for as long as he was and not be able to manipulate. And he'd basically tell me what I wanted to hear. You know, yep, I agree, yep, you know, that kind of thing. But then he started an email circulation with people and creating this, you know, this dialogue, and he'd get these crazy philosophies that people would submit, and we were all replying all to each other, you know. And I basically said, you guys are all confused, you know, these Eastern philosophies, this whole group hug thing, and you know, there's all these different things, you know, being thrown around, and you know, I gave him the truth, and then eventually I was like, this wasn't included anymore in these replies. But one day I sat with them, and shortly after that, and he asked a question that is huge when you think about it. He said, why the focus on how crappy we are? See, in hindsight, I found out, you know, and I told him why we need to, unless we know what we are being saved from and the reason we are condemned, we won't fully embrace and understand the cure, the redemption. And, you know, a short time after that, he would go to his church with his mom. You know, he is constantly trying to make everybody happy. And my buddy Ron, which if you watch Ron's story, you know Ron to a certain extent. And Ron wasn't yet saved, but he went to his church with this particular person and his mom. And he called me, he said, Coleman, something's goofy about that church. And, you know, he started telling me, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. And it turns out it's one of those left-wing churches where it's all, hey, it's all love, it's all good, we're under God's grace, we're all God's children. And it's just a false doctrine. It's just not the gospel. So it's not surprising that he didn't get it. And now here I come telling him how, what we are as fallen people and why we need to be redeemed. And the whole thing, I mean, just is confusing to him, you know. So, incidentally, I think he just got out of prison again. And I don't know, I haven't connected with him and I don't know if I will. I don't know. That's a side point. But anyway, I see I've almost got to 10 minutes here. You know, sorry. But what's my point? My point is I'm going to get into 1 John here, and John has been described as the disciple that Jesus loved, which I don't really get because, of course, he loved all of them. But there's something to that. But he's always he's a youngest one, I think, and he's always been kind of the love, compassionate type, you know. So if that be the case, when we get into 1 John, which will be on the next video, just take a look at the love that's in John. But it's all warning. Love warns. So with that, I'm going to stop this one and start another one, reading 1 John. Peace.